These days, it feels like democracy is less about people's voices and more about who shouts the loudest. Politicians follow algorithms, not values, social media amplifies polarization, and real dialogue gets replaced by slogan wars. But what if I told you someone who lived 300 years ago saw this crisis coming, and what if his forgotten theory could actually fix what's broken today? His name was John Locke, and this is the untold idea that could save modern democracy. Is it fact? Is it fiction? That's for you to decide. But one thing's for sure, this story might just change how you see the world. We know Locke as the guy who inspired concepts like freedom and individual rights, but his real revolution was in one simple sentence: all power comes from the consent of the governed. It sounds obvious now, but back then, it was radical. He challenged kings. He challenged systems. He said rulers don't get their power from God, they get it from the people. Locke lived in 17th century England, an era of absolute monarchy, where kings ruled by divine right. His father had sided with parliamentary forces, so from an early age, Locke witnessed political conflicts firsthand, studied at Oxford, learned medicine, practiced philosophy, but the game changer was meeting Ashley Cooper, later the Earl of Shaftesbury, who pulled him into the world of politics. Together they went into exile. Together they fought for change. These experiences taught him something crucial: power. Holders always try to preserve their power. But true legitimacy comes from popular consent, and this consent, here's the key, must be continuously renewed. That idea was so powerful, it sparked revolutions. It inspired the American Declaration of Independence. It laid the groundwork for the French Revolution. But have we really lived up to it? Here's the part they don't teach enough. Locke believed consent wasn't just a one-time thing, not just voting every 4 years. He believed consent must be renewed constantly. In his 2 treatises of government, he writes, "Government loses its legitimacy the moment it loses the people's trust." This wasn't just theoretical talk, it was a practical warning. Look around today. How many politicians truly listen? How many treat their office like a throne instead of a duty? How many stay accountable to voters after getting elected? This is exactly what Locke predicted. In systems where consent mechanisms weaken, power holders start serving their own interests instead of the people. Lobbyists become more powerful than voters. Media becomes a manipulation tool in the wrong hands. And that's when, according to Locke, the people can exercise their right to resist. But this resistance doesn't have to be violent. It can be civil disobedience, protest, or building alternative systems. Gandhi's Salt March, Martin Luther King's Birmingham campaign, and more recently, climate activists' protests. They're all modern applications of Locke's ongoing consent theory, but most of us aren't even aware of this power we have. We complain on social media, but we don't take real action for change. Locke warned, where trust breaks, democracy dies. What do we see today? We're drowning in disinformation. People don't trust the media, or elections, or even each other. And in that silence of trust, extremists grow louder. Let's check the numbers. According to Pew Research 2023 data, only 20% of Americans trust the government most of the time. In many other democracies, the situation is even more complex. Political polarization has deepened, so much that people with different political views perceive the same events completely differently. But Locke didn't just point out the problem, he offered the solution to rebuilding trust requires transparency. It requires accountability. And most importantly, it requires keeping the public continuously informed. In his essay concerning human understanding, Locke argues that knowledge is more important than power, because an informed public can't be manipulated. It asks questions, seeks evidence, thinks critically. Today, we're experiencing information inflation. There's too much information, but how much of it is true? As Locke said, true knowledge comes from experience and reason, not from propaganda. That's why media literacy is now part of our civic duty. Researching sources, cross-checking facts, asking critical questions, these aren't luxuries, they're requirements of democratic life. If John Locke could see this mess, what would he say? Probably something like, democracy is like a building, but the foundation is the people. And if people feel ignored, the building collapses. What would he think about social media? On one hand, it has the potential to amplify people's voices. On the other hand, it's a tool for disinformation and polarization. Locke would probably say, the tool doesn't matter. How you use it matters. Running hashtag campaigns on Twitter is easy, but real change requires more. In Locke's terms, civil society participation. This isn't just voting, it's attending local meetings, following city council sessions, taking active roles in civil organizations. In Locke's time, this participation was more limited. Only a certain class could participate in politics. But today, theoretically, everyone has the right to participate. So why don't we use this right? Because the system conditions us to be passive. The experts will handle it mentality. But according to Locke, there are no experts in democracy, only citizens, and every citizen, being part of the system, is responsible for the system. If he were alive today, he'd probably support blockchain technology, open source software, and citizen journalism, because they all have the potential to decentralize power centers and democratize information. If you're under 30, this is your moment. You don't need to run for office. But you do need to care, because freedom fades when no one's watching. And if democracy is going to survive, it'll be rebuilt by you. Gen Z has a unique advantage: access to information. In Locke's time, reading a book was a privilege. Today, you can watch a protest on the other side of the world live. You can read an academic's research within minutes. But with great power comes great responsibility. It's easy to get lost in this flood of information. Locke's advice still holds. First learn, then decide, then act. Today's young activists are already doing this. Greta Thunberg learned about the climate crisis, made her decision, took action. Malala did the same for education rights. They're not just protesting, they're offering alternative solutions. As Locke said, criticism is easy, building is hard. It's not enough to tear down the old system. You have to build the new one. And this construction process is possible with each of our contributions. Maybe you'll develop an app that strengthens local democracy. Maybe you'll create a media platform that fights disinformation. Or maybe you'll just start quality conversations with people around you. According to Locke, great revolutions begin with small awareness. One of Locke's most important concepts was property rights. But today, the concept of property has changed. Is your data your property? Does your social media account belong to you? Who controls your digital identity? These questions take Locke's fundamental argument to a new dimension. He had developed his freedom argument through physical property. Today, we're talking about digital freedom. Platforms like Meta, Google, and X determine how billions of people communicate. Their algorithms influence what you see, who you talk to. Isn't this the invisible tyranny that Locke feared? But the solution is in the same principle: consent. You don't have to use these platforms. You can develop alternatives. Decentralized solutions like Mastodon, Signal, and Brave already exist. If Locke were alive, he'd probably say, freedom isn't free. It requires you to constantly make choices. Every click, every like, every share is a choice. And the sum of these choices shapes your digital future. Locke's theories were developed for British society, but they were based on universal principles. Today, the democracy crisis isn't specific to one country. It's a global problem. The protests in Hong Kong, the resistance in Belarus, the women's protests in Iran, the civil disobedience in Myanmar, they're all contemporary examples of Locke's legitimate right to resist theory. But the solution to global problems comes through local actions. As Locke said, change begins from the smallest unit: family, school, neighborhood, city. Democratic participation is possible at every level. Turkey's neighborhood headman system is actually very close to Locke's local government ideas. But can we use its potential? When did you last talk to your neighborhood headman? Have you attended municipal council meetings? Locke would say, it's easy to rebel against distant kings. It's hard to take on nearby responsibilities. But real democracy begins with the latter. Locke wasn't just a political philosopher, he was also an education theorist. In his work, Some Thoughts Concerning Education, he explored ways to raise democratic citizens. For him, education wasn't just knowledge transfer, it was the process of developing critical thinking. With his tabula rasa theory, he argued that humans are born as blank slates, shaped by experiences and education. This was crucial for democracy, because if people aren't inherently bad, they can learn to be good citizens. If they're not born slaves, they can learn to be free. Do our current education systems meet this vision? Are students learning to ask questions, or just memorizing answers? Are they learning to evaluate different viewpoints, or believing there's only one truth? Locke's educational philosophy continues to live today through concepts like active learning, critical thinking, and democratic education. But is it enough? Maybe each of us should question our own education. What have we learned in the past month? Which of our prejudices have we questioned? Have we listened to different perspectives? Locke reminds us, power doesn't live in a chair or a building. Real power lives in you, in your awareness, in your voice, because when enough of us start thinking, no system can stay the same. Locke's legacy doesn't just live in theories, it lives in our daily choices. Every time you vote, every time you protest, every time you ask questions, every time you seek alternatives, you're bringing his vision to life. But most importantly, every time you listen to someone else, every time you empathize, every time you build bridges, you're realizing Locke's greatest dream, a society where people can live together in peace. This isn't just a YouTube video, this is an invitation to stop being a passive viewer and become an active citizen, to stop complaining and start creating solutions, to stop being hopeless and become part of the change. Because that vision John Locke saw 300 years ago A world truly governed by the people, where justice really exists, where freedom is truly protected, is still possible. And the key to that possibility is in your hands. So, here's the question. Are you ready to carry that responsibility? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop your thoughts in the comments. In our next episode, we're diving into Hannah Arendt's theories on rise and warning signs. Stay curious, stay informed, stay powerful.